Good afternoon and welcome to the Health Wrap. Hi, Carla. How you doing?
Hi, Carolyn. How are you doing?
I'm hanging in here. It's Saturday, and these are crazy times that we're living in. I think you said it yesterday. Things are red hot. Red.
Red hot. And, we're going to talk about several states that are just basically on fire. I was looking at a map the other day, a couple of days ago, and everybody was in like red, orange, or yellow in just maybe three states that had not been affected. So, you know, it's unbelievable of what's going on and how we've re-entered society, and people just think they can just rip their mask off. They don't have to social distance anymore, and they can just go on with life like it was before. But we're in a red alert.
Absolutely. In fact, you can see the map. This is a map of the United States. And the red, I looked at this map when Hillary first showed it to us, and I thought, this looks like the virus itself floating through the air. But you can see the hot spots. We are focused on a couple of states today that we want to talk about. But there's a second map I want you to look at. This one, Carla. This actually looks at the new daily cases, and these numbers are like crazy. And you can see you're in Tennessee. You guys have
Right.
seen a plus 50% increase. I'm in South Carolina. We have seen a plus 100% increase. Yesterday was the first time I actually remember, by the way, my governor saying, wear a mask, wear a mask, wear a mask. Remember, we were one of the first states to open back up, and we're seeing the surge. We were one of the last states to close. I missed that part. We were last to close, and then we were the first to open up. And while there has been no official word, I think if you listen to some of the doctors out here, they're really it makes you say we need to be back where we started a few weeks ago, which is to stay at home. If you're heading to Miami Beach for the 4th of July weekend, or you had planned to, hope you have a beachfront view because the beach is closed. The mayor this morning said he's not going to allow the beach in Miami to be open. You're seeing so many flip-flops happening as it relates to decisions that people made earlier, those in leadership, and now listening to public health. And so Florida is a hot spot that people are watching. It's really our three big states, right? Florida.
California, Texas.
And what do you have on Texas, Carla?
Well, we have a lot going on in Texas. One thing that I'm very curious about, a lot of things have been closed there as well. However, and we're going to talk about this later with our doctor on call. However, there's certain places that remain open. Texas, deep in the heart of Texas, the cases have just gone up tremendously. And Texas was basically one of those first states too that did the reentry. But Governor Abbott, he's telling people you're going to have to learn how to coexist at home. They're saying that elective surgeries, or if there's any surgery that needs to be done, you're going to have to wait like it was. Remember when we were in stage one, because hospital beds are just filling up to capacity. The bars, they're talking about bars closed. You can go to restaurants for takeout and that sort of thing. What's happening with the bars, and we're seeing this in Nashville as well, where some people got citations. People go to a bar, they like to sit close. They like to talk and have conversation with people. That means they're not going to wear their mask if they are consuming of their favorite beverage and sitting there close talking to buddies. So that's one of the things that's going on, not only in Texas, but across the country. But Governor Abbott says, restaurants have to go back to half capacity. And so if you are, you can still patronize your restaurant by going and ordering takeout. I was telling you, my friend yesterday, Renee, was here in Nashville, and she was going to a restaurant. I was like, go to restaurants right now. And she pulled up, she said, it is packed in here. So she decided to get takeout. And that's happening across the country.
My daddy used to say, common sense ain't common. And that is so true. But I feel a little bit of frustration because you and I know we've spent the last 11 weeks, longer than that, actually telling people you got to wear that mask. You got to have the distance. Yesterday, they had the first coronavirus task force meeting that they've had in, 2 months, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And our nation's doctor, as I like to call him, Dr. Fauci, said, look, You have a personal responsibility, but you also have a social responsibility. That means you have a responsibility to your brother and your sister. Yes, you are your brother and your sister's keeper. And we have to put the mask on and keep the distance to keep other people safe. It's just that simple. I feel like we're saying the same thing, but we clearly still need to say it. I do want to say a couple quick good mornings and hellos to some folks who are joining us. Benita Walker, who joins us each week, and we're happy to have her. Carletta Reed
Hey,
is with Reggie Marshall. Yeah, Reggie Marshall's out there. Cardell Winfrey, he's out there. Good
oh,
Cardell.
that's my little
Lynn,
brother.
yep, Sterling Wright. Lots of good people.
Look at
Victor
Chef Gabby.
well, yeah, yeah. So we're happy to have everybody on board. Here's what I'm going to ask of everybody who is watching, and I ask two things. Don't believe what we say. We're not doctors, okay? We're trying to pass along what we think is the most sound information. But go back and look at the very first show that we did that had four experts, including Dr. Hildreth on it, who said, here's what we need to do, people. Here's what's going to happen. And watch and see things have happened as they have said. The confusion that we're seeing now, the pandemic of misinformation. So we're going to try our hardest to continue on this mission that we feel like we've been set on to set the record straight. And I know we also got a doctor in house today that's from Texas, where
Yes.
it's hot, red hot.
Right. And speaking of Texas again, now, as big as Texas is and business and barbecues and all of this that people will be doing on the 4th of July, that's just can't happen. When I saw that the Texas Restaurant Association said that, okay, we're okay with this, we don't like it, but we're okay with it because people are getting sick. And that came straight from the president saying, we understand it, we don't like it, but now we need to close down.
Absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and get our doctor in here because I know we both have lots of questions for him.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out if it is what it
Hey,
is.
Dr. Reed.
Well,
How you doing?
good. I'm doing
Everyone,
fine.
good. This is Dr. Brian Reed, and he is a practicing family physician in Houston. He's also the chair of the clinical science department there at the University of Houston at the College of Medicine. So welcome to the Health Wrap.
Welcome.
We know you're really busy now. One of the things that Carolyn and I were talking about was, what if, because we know that there's a rise in the hospital beds, and a lot of they're saying now no elective surgery, so we know those beds have to be set aside for people with coronavirus. Can you give us an outlook and tell us what happens, if you get sick, and what do we need to do?
So, it's a great question. So we hit 100% capacity of our ICUs here in the Texas Medical Center, and it's among the world's largest groups of hospitals together. We do have some additional room or surge capacity, meaning we're able to convert some of the areas that aren't typically ICUs into space for people that are that sick. So there's still room in case people are, sick, if they're not able to breathe, if they're not able to eat or feed themselves. I mean, the hospital is still the place where they would receive that level of care. The reason why we're sounding alarms is that, if the trend continues, we'll pass beyond, our ability to take care of those individuals in these extra rooms and have to come up with additional resources or send people that come to the hospital to other regions or send them out, to where there's additional beds or additional space.
So for those though who, we keep hearing, we talked about this, asymptomatics and pre-symptomatic. I mean, so just you're home and you think that in fact you might have come in contact, because now we're hearing that the tracking and the tracing isn't living up to what folks had hoped it would live up to. But what can families do as they're watching and saying, how do I keep my loved ones safe in the event we have inadvertently been exposed to someone?
So that's another good question, and that's a very common scenario. So at the University of Houston College of Medicine, we have a federally qualified health center on campus, the Lone Star Circle of Care. And that's what we've seen. We've seen individuals that have gone to work, been where they're supposed to be, and come into contact with a coworker that is tested positive. So then they get usually some sort of notification from their employer that, hey, we had this happen. You know, you may want to consider getting tested, or they actually do some testing on site. So some of our more conscientious patients are thinking, well, if I was potentially exposed and now I'm finding out several days later and there's this pre-symptomatic phase, let me go get tested. Perhaps my family should get tested too. So we've seen that where, you know, someone's exposed at work, they come in a couple of days later, they test positive, and the next thing you know, family members are coming in. Some of them have symptoms, some of them don't. I think it's good to get tested. That way, you know, we're able to isolate or remove people that could potentially be spreading it to others. Where people can get tested has become a challenge because the demand has gone up. There are still free testing locations, at least in, I know, Houston and Harris County, and those are typically advertised, or you can find them online. But some of the private pharmacies or larger pharmacies like CVS and Walgreens offer testing. If you have a usual place of care, primary care physician's office oftentimes do as well. The ER would be sort of a last resort, or hospital would be a last resort to go get tested. But that's if you're really sick, like if you're having trouble with breathing or haven't been able to eat or drink for a couple of days, you know, that's where you would need a higher level of care.
But if you think you have mild symptoms, do you do like we tell people during the flu, you treat the symptoms, you just focus on what is hurting, or if you're coughing, you focus on that if it's not the extreme?
Yeah, you're supposed to stay home. I mean, really from the day one, if you feel sick, stay home. I know that some people, you know, have jobs that require them to show up in order to get paid, and that's been a barrier for some. There's no paid sick leave in some situations. But the messaging all along is if you are not feeling well, you need to stay home. And then, you know, most of us have mild infections. So most of the things that we're doing, if you do test positive, people are like, well, now what? There's no specific treatment for this. It's still, you know, for the sore throat, Tylenol, ibuprofen, warm teas, soup, you know, those home remedies that mom and grandma told us about. It's only if you are really to the point to where, you know, you cannot breathe, you're having really trouble with breathing, or you've been in a situation where you've had lots of diarrhea, can't keep anything down, or, you know, lots of vomiting and feel extremely weak, you know, that's when someone might require an IV. My you know, advice regarding, you know, how do you know if you're that short of breath? If you're not able to complete a sentence, if you're just talking to people and you can't complete a sentence, you're really in bad shape. You may not have all the monitors at home, but if you're that short of breath to where you can't breathe to at least say 2 or 3 words together, you really need to go in and get assessed.
Dr. Reed, I wanted to ask you this. I know in Texas and in other places, there are some churches that have opened. I know that there are some graduations that are taking place. There was one in Miami yesterday where the priest told the students, take your mask off while you're singing and speaking. Now, singing, Dr. Hildreth, from Meharry, has told us how this virus can just spread. You know, the 6 feet is for just everyday talking, but people singing, and you know, that's a celebration of graduation. We need to tell people we need to have some common sense, I think.
No, I agree 100%. I mean, the people that I've seen in my office that have tested positive, that got it at work, said that, you know, before everyone was wearing a mask, they were just having a regular conversation with someone, and they had been trying to social distance or just keep themselves at least 6 feet away. And it was just sort of conversation, and they said, you know, so-and-so looked a little tired, but they really weren't coughing or anything like that. So if you're going into a situation where, you know, they're singing, shouting, yelling, 6 feet apart is not going to be far enough apart, because those respiratory droplets can spread up to 20 feet. My church, and I'm Catholic, I mean, they just issued, I mean, they've been trying to social distance people that actually go to mass in the pews, and they now said, you know, a mask is required because of concern about the spread. I myself have just been watching remotely. You know, I just haven't gone back, you know.
I don't blame you. Well, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but you know, often we try to play out strategically where is this going and how might this end? Do we see an end?
Yeah, so this is really at this time a public health crisis. It's not something that medicine can fix right now, but it is something that we can fix with individual behavior. Uh, you've seen this happen in other countries. They were on similar trajectories, but they wound up socially distancing, wearing masks, isolating individuals that were sick through contact tracing, identifying people that were sick, and then telling people that they came into contact with to stay home. And then the trajectory went down. They don't have any vaccines. They don't have any special medications. We have some promising medications for those that are in the hospital that are gravely ill to keep them alive. But for the rest of us with like mild symptoms and pre-symptomatic phases, I mean, there's nothing really to keep us from spreading it to somebody else other than staying away from others. So I know we're social beings. I know we like to fellowship. I know we like to gather. We do much better in the company of others. But until we start to see these cases go down, until we see evidence that there is less COVID-19 or coronavirus in our communities, these are the new rules to keep us safe. We have to wash our hands, we have to socially distance, and we have to use a mask when out in public, or just stay home altogether if we don't need to go out.
Well, thank you, Dr. Reed. We really appreciate all this information. And you stay safe down there in Texas, and we'll be back in contact with you. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Reed. Thank you so much. I tell you, Carla, it's a little frustrating. I mean, you keep wondering what is the answer, what's the solution, what's the right way to say it to get people to do what we need to do, because it's not getting better.
No, it's not. And, I just told someone yesterday, you want to wear a mask or do you want to wear a ventilator?
Good point. I love the tweet that was sent out by former Vice President's daughter. She said, "Real men wear masks," and that was about the extent of it. And I love that with his riding with his cowboy hat on. All right, so we've got more on this show ahead, right? What's coming up, Carla?
Well, we have a story that we're pretty excited about because it's about a farmer who is helping out residents in a public housing community. And he's also a nurse.
For public health. And so we don't want to miss that. We'll be back after this message.
To help protect others from COVID-19, DHEC encourages everyone to wear a mask or cloth face covering when in public. Make sure your mask covers your nose and mouth, and you can breathe through it. Remember to clean your hands before and after putting on your mask, and try not to touch the mask or your face while wearing it. Don't use a mask on children under the age of 2, and don't use surgical masks needed by healthcare workers. Help stop the spread. Visit scdhec.gov/COVID-19.
Hats off to our friends over at DHEC. They've been doing everything they can to get these messages out and get people to wash their hands and wear the mask and keep you as well informed. So we really owe them a debt of gratitude for being on board and wanting to continue messaging as we've been trying to do. So let's talk about the farmer in the city.
Okay, the farmer in the city. All right. Well, there's a lot of talk about the federal aid that people who have gotten that, and it's helped people out during this pandemic season. So as things continue, a lot of people are like, well, are we still going to be able to have money? Because, a lot of this becomes political. So a lot of people who have been able to, some people actually have come out of the poverty line because they're making more by getting some of the federal aid. But we know that's not going to continue. And what's going to continue is that people are going to continue to be in food deserts. So we have a farmer. As I said, he's also a nurse, and he wants to do something about that. He wants to take pots and make promises and hopes and dreams to people by going into an area that's a food desert. And this could be one way to help with nutrition. We know that a food desert by the USDA is an area that does not have fresh fruits or vegetables. There's not a grocery store in the area, or it may not have fresh fruits and vegetables if it's in the area. It could just have things that are not nutritious. So we're going to visit with the farmer today here in Nashville at J.C. Napier Community.
So that's what I don't want these children to go through. I keep hearing about kids being hungry and, families being hungry. This is a way for me to help mitigate this. Yeah, okay. You want to help? Yeah. There you go. Put it in there. I'm a farmer as well as a registered nurse. I'm a house supervisor at St. Thomas Midtown Hospital in Nashville. And I'm here to help these children grow food, not just grow food for their nutrition, but also grow food for their mental health as well. Good job. Talking to the kids about the production of agriculture, and tomatoes is an easy one. Teaching them how many tomatoes and how many tomatoes come from each plant, how many pounds, and the actual value of those tomatoes. Because the goal is for every balcony out here and every porch to have vegetables growing on it by the end of the summer.
Yeah, you got me some tomatoes. Got me one tomato. I'm gonna grab some cherries.
They just asked me, why is my dad a nurse? but mainly, they ask more about the farming aspect of everything. So, we're basically, I tell them what we're growing and tell them, what we're doing for the community.
Tomato caprese salad, because we got the fresh basil out here that we can grow. We got fresh marinara we also can do with the tomatoes and the peppers. Then we can have eggplant parmesan, which is one of my favorites. That go to plant right there. So many different variety of foods.
I walked outside one day and it's this little bit of fig, and then I come back outside and it is just beautiful.
That's a yard-long green bean. You want some of this? Yeah. At my urban farm in Antioch, we've got 1,500 potted vegetables that we're growing ourselves. I'll have a total of about 3,500 before the season's over with. And these kids are eager to learn, and children at this age will absorb everything.
Okay, you ready? Did you teach her? What's she supposed to do? Do it together.
We used to have one grocery store here and it was still low grade. A lot of these people out here don't have cars. They don't have transportation. I'm lucky to be able to go to the grocery store and buy what I need. But a lot of people can only walk to this location. So if all you have around you is fattening foods, chips, cookies, cakes, and pies, and you don't really have any real groceries, then you have no choice but to, be unhealthy.
Just because, we don't like to go to the grocery store and buy things, and we know that it's fresh.
And what he's doing is going to cut down on the crime out here. That the kids will have less time doing dirty work, but actually doing dirty work.
And we are just, excited about what this opportunity for this community to build upon itself and to develop for itself the hope that really is needed for them to move beyond these concrete walls and so forth.
Go around trying to find anybody wants this watermelon to grow it.
Yeah, we gotta help ourselves to help each other. Can't help somebody else if you can't help yourself.
Talk to them. Nah, it ain't that one. You got tomatoes, you got carrots, and you got squash. Which one? Squash? He said he gonna do the squash.
How old are you?
Never seen a black farmer. Never.
But to see an actual black man come up here and bring this stuff, and he's getting his hands dirty and he's actually building this stuff, and to be able to see them grow lets you know that there's something else that we can do. We have green hands too. We don't just have drug hands, we got green hands. We can make other stuff grow, great things grow.
I also even
Well,
I love that story.
Carolyn, it was absolutely a
We'll
joy.
have to check back in.
We will. The gentleman in the red that talks a whole lot, that's Chef Sterling Wright. He was on Hell's Kitchen as a contestant, and he is just full of energy there with Reggie, Miss Adams, the resident, Brian Marshall, the son. Everybody's just all hands on deck for those residents. And the pastor, you heard him say about this gives you something from the pastor from Mount Airy, a local church over there. This gives you something besides just these brick walls. So we're going to be checking in with them. And we like to tell them thank you for allowing us to come to their home.
South Carolinians are asking, what can they do to stop the spread of COVID-19? Our response? Answer the call. Through what's called contact tracing, DHEC's trained contact tracers call everyone who has tested positive for COVID-19 and those who could have been exposed. All information is confidential, voluntary, and collected over the phone. This information helps us protect you, your loved ones, and your community. Answer the call to keep your community safe. Visit scdhec.gov/COVID-19.
Well, welcome back. I'm still, those urban gardens on the porch, it just makes so much sense. I love him. God bless him. God bless him for doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a reality show,
Yeah.
a real reality show with something that's good.
In with him before the end of the summer. It's a great story. Well, you ready to move? You ready to see some
Oh
moves?
boy, you've been waiting for this. You know what? I'm gonna
Ready
tell
to see
you,
some moves?
this Miss Walker likes to dance around like you do too.
Okay, well, Miss Walker and everybody else who's watching, we've had a lot of people joining us today. I saw Shonda Hunter, who was with us a couple of weeks ago with her son graduating and heading off to Morehouse. I'm excited to see some of our regulars. But this next story, I'll confess, y'all, I was watching a little television and saw this story about a couple that went to learn some dance moves, and they went to this studio down in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is kind of around my neck of the woods here. Keisha B is the wonderful woman who runs that studio. And when I reached out to Keisha, she responded. And I want you to take a look at what she sent us.
Hello, Health Rat family. This is Keisha Bridgman of Charlotte, North Carolina. I am the owner and instructor of Soca Fit USA, and it is a carnival-style fun fitness experience. So basically, we're using the genre of soca music, putting it together with some aerobic moves and some cultural moves from the West Indies, and I've created this class to infuse this amazing experience for women and men, if they dare, to come and be a part of. So basically, I started this class as a way to help others on their fitness journeys. I love to dance, and I feel like dancing is one of the best ways of working out, and this really is a helpful tool to do that. Also, it helps with it's a de-stressor as well. So one thing about soca music is that it's a happy kind of music. So basically, there are no sad soca songs. A lot of my students come in and if they're not feeling good and not having a good day, soca seems to de-stress them. I tell them to leave it on the floor, and they end up having a better day and enjoying the rest of their evening. And I've had many testimonies about how it makes them feel. We also try to build confidence here in class. There's a lot of freedom of movement. Body parts are moving that you probably never would move normally. So you do have to learn to be confident in that. So we encourage all of that here. And as well, we build stamina, we lose weight, and we also lose inches here. So basically, I wanted to show 3 moves that we use pretty much in class. Some of the basic moves are a whine, a juke, and a roll. So the whine, I'm gonna slow down first, do a slower pace of it. So you just swing your hips left to right, heel is coming forward. And when you speed this up, this is your whine. It's a figure 8 with your hips. You're engaging your core, tightening your tush, and you're working your quads at the same time. Right? When you get comfortable, you can keep your feet planted and the waistline will move in a figure 8 as well. Same thing, right? Then there's the juke, opening your legs in second position, bending your knees slightly, and your hips going forward and back. Engaging your core again, tightening your quads, squeezing your tush, and to speed up the juke, looks like this. All right? Last one is a roll. Roll, slow motion roll, pushing back, knees are bending slightly forward, and you speed that up. It's like a hula hoop. We remember hula hoop when we were kids. When you speed it up, looks like this. Good. And bring it together. Whine, 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 and juke. Juke, 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 and roll. Roll, roll, drop, up, up. Good. Thank you so much for having me here on Health Wrap. I appreciate you all. I hope to see you soon in a SocaFit USA class here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Thank you.
Now, how about that?
I said Carolyn's probably ready to go right now.
That was some hula hooping, right? Lots of comments. Lori Thorne jumped in and said, "That's my teacher." Well, you are a lucky lady, Lori. Here's my suggestion, because you know I'm an entrepreneur, Carla. Reach out to Keisha, and maybe what you do is have a family night, which would be really fun, and see if she could do something on a Zoom call with your family. She's an entrepreneur trying to make her business work, just like so many of us during this pandemic. And I'm sure she'd be excited to hear that you heard about her on the Health Wrap. And is there a way that you guys could maybe do something really fun with the family there and getting healthy? Because that's really what it's all about, being healthy, right?
That's what it's about. I know it's time for us to go. We ran over just a little bit, but we had a lot of important information to talk to the doctor about today.
And we're leaving on a good note too, right?
Yes, we're leaving on a good note too. And you better get your mask up.
Please get your mask. We leave you with, I think she calls herself the Skate Kid.
The Skate Kid.
Love this story. You know, I'm in love with what they've done in DC in terms of the Black Lives Matter Plaza. And I thought this was just a great way for us.
She's adorable.
Yeah. We'll see you back next week, everybody. Please share the show with your friends. Thanks for tuning in.
Stay safe, stay alive.
You're broken down and tired of living life on the merry-go-round, and you can't find a fighter, but I see it in you, so we gon' walk it out. Move mountains, we gon' walk it out and move mountains. And I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again. We have each other, and for that we have each other, and we will rise, we will rise, we'll rise, we'll rise. I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up in spite of the ache. I will rise 1,000 times.